Okay, it is Monday, July 15th, bringing you a Lake of the Ozarks fishing report brought to you by James and Denise Steele Guide Service. As always, we are going to give you like lake conditions and kind of what's going on. We try to keep you up to date, what's been going on. It's been a few weeks since we put up a video, but we're kind of getting into some different patterns now in the summertime pattern. Obviously, it's 100 degrees out today. We had a big group trip this morning. Went real well. I think everybody caught fish. But it got warm, and it got pretty rough about 11 o'clock or so. It's about the normal, though, down here, even during the week. But there's plenty of time to fish. Early in the morning's been real good. In the evenings have been good, right before dark, and even after dark, if you like night fishing. A lot of fish being caught at night. But, right now the lake is full. I'll say it's full. It's 659.3, I think. So it's pretty close to full. It usually doesn't get much fuller than this. Temperature, we're in the 80s. Upper 70s, low 80s right now. So it's warm. It's summertime. Generation, like, it's been kind of up and down. They'll turn it off. When I say off, 5,000 cubic foot, which is pretty much nothing. And then right now, I just looked and they're running 35,000. As long as we have these hot days, Ameren's going to generate electricity for all that demand. So, throughout the days, a lot of times they'll crank up that generation, and it has some effect on the fish. It definitely does. Do you necessarily need it right now? No, I don't think so. If you're targeting fish that are going to feed with the current, then yes. But right now there's a lot of shad throughout the lake. They're on main lake. They're halfway back in these creeks, and there's some all the way in the back. So that's kind of got the fish scattered out. As far as I'm concerned, wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
But that does two things. It allows you to fish main lake stuff, main lake oriented stuff early maybe, because there's a lot of shad out there, so bass are going to be out there. But then when it gets rough, the lake gets rough with all the boats, you can get back in some of these no-wake coves or way back in some of these no-wake creeks and do just as well way in the back. So it kind of opens up the lake. You don't have to necessarily be on main lake points like early June when they're really running water. It seems like the majority of fish are post-spawn or feeding. That's kind of like, that's the deal. You go to main lake points in early June. But now we're in July. So July and August is pretty close to the same. Once we get into September, we start getting some cool nights. Things start changing. They start flipping into another seasonal pattern. So right now we're going to say, obviously we're in summertime pattern. There's a lot of things that are working. Obviously I'd probably start with, if you're talking numbers and size, we've been throwing, what we've been throwing here is this a chug bug, a topwater bait of some sort, both up by the bank. As these fish move up shallow at night, they'll stay up shallow for a while. They'll feed on bluegill, they'll feed on shad. But as that sun gets up and these fish start to back off of the bank and relate to some of these docks, these deeper docks, big condo docks, cruiser docks, and really it doesn't have to be a big dock sometimes. We like to look for these docks that are catching the wind, a breeze, and shade, and if you can get that on the upstream side, so you've got the current moving, you've got the shade there, and you got a little breeze, it's the dock. So that dock doesn't really necessarily have to be main lake, midway back in the creeks. It just needs to kind of stick out and catch and have all three of those factors to really be a productive dock. Now, if it's got one of the three, that's your plus. But if it gets all three, you're in great shape. So what have you been doing with the chug bug?
So yeah, you're looking at basically, if you're coming off main lake, I would focus on those first couple docks there, like you said, that have some current, have some, a lot of times in the shade. But then you can also go back a little into your cove where you've got your, maybe a dock that sticks out a little bit further than the other ones that's catching that current. And then also all the way in the back. Now, as far as working the bait, you can, I don't think that you can't work it wrong, basically. No. You throw it to the bank, throw it to the corners of the docks, parallel to the docks, and you just barely twitch your wrist and just barely move that bait along the top of the top.
Right. I mean, some days that's how they want it. You kind of got to see what mood they're in, and a lot of that depends on what the shad are doing, how active the shad are. But a lot of times, like we'll just start working the bait, just a steady retrieve, popping, nothing too crazy, extreme, not too aggressive, and see if we get some action. If not, we'll speed it up a little bit. You can pop it 3-4 times and let it sit there. Just let it sit still. And sometimes that's what it takes to get these fish to come out from under these docks. You know, some days the shad will be, or the bass will be busting the shad, and you'll physically see them just busting them. And then it's easy. You just throw anything over there.
Get your bait in there.
And just pop it and catch a lot of fish. We've caught several keepers on it. Today on the trip we caught 3 of the keeper largemouth on the chug bug, and then we caught a couple on the fluke, which I'll show you about. But as far as the chug bug's probably our favorite. You know, the hooks are fairly decent on it. We do switch up the back feather tail a lot of times. Like this one here, you know, you can see it's got a little bigger feather on it. It moves a little more water. It kind of looks a little more real, and a little better hook on it. So, you know, this is a chug bug. We got this one from 6 Cents. It's kind of got a bigger mouth. It pushes a little more water, makes a little more bubble. You know, 6 Cents, you know, most of their baits have good hooks on them to begin with. It's got a good tail fly on it. You know, so 6 Cents is a good one. This one here, I think this is a Livingston. It's real similar to the chug bug. Got a lot of rattles in it. It's a good moving bait, but the hooks are way too small. So like something like this, you're going to have to switch out the hooks most of the time. You know, but there's a lot of different topwater baits. Chug, I call it chug bug, but they're just poppers. Or a lot of people refer to them as poppers. They're all doing a similar thing. They just look like one of these wounded shad that these fish are feeding on, or maybe have attacked and wounded, and that fish is just kind of fluttering on top. And if you do it long enough around, you know, schooling fish, you're going to catch the bass. And we catch a lot of keepers on them. You know, I haven't caught nothing over 3 pounds probably in the last 2 weeks. Have you? But topwater, you know, chug bug really good for, you know, keepers up to 3 pounders most of the time. You never know, a big one will show up. You know, the other bait we throw on a similar situation is a fluke. It's just a Zoom Super Fluke 5/0 wide gap hook with a number 4 treble hook as a stinger hook on there. That's critical. 80% of your fish are hooked on that. That's for these swipers. The thing about a fluke, and you throw that on 8, 10, maybe 12 pound fluorocarbon. Don't go any higher than that. It'll ruin the action of the bait. You know, the key to that is it's got to be straight. When you rig that thing, you want it perfectly straight so that thing can glide easily because it's weightless. All right, so that you're going to throw in the same areas as the chug bug. The only deal with the fluke is you can throw it out there and just let it sink. Let that thing sink down. If you're seeing the shad down 8, 10, 12 foot, like we do a lot of times in the morning, you got to let that thing sink down to them and then work it up. And then same deal, I work it up slow, work it up real quick until you see what they're wanting. You know, that's extremely productive. Catch a lot of keepers on this, probably up to 3 pounds too. But you will get them 4 pounders that are hanging out underneath them deep docks, and they'll come out and they'll attack that fluke.
Frequently, there's more than one fish with.
Right, good point. A lot of times you'll see how many fish are there. Once you get one to commit and you get them in a feeding mode and he comes out and attacks that fluke or the chug bug, there might be 3 or 4 with them.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, them bigger ones, you'll see what the potential is because you'll see them 3, 4 pounders underneath these little 14 inches that you just caught, and they're down there waiting, you know, for another bait or another shad or something like that. So that's been real productive. Other baits in the summer that just seem to produce, especially when they're feeding on shad like right now, are swim baits. You know, and we'll throw swim baits all the way from, you know, when you say swim bait, you know, we're used to, you know, thinking about these giant, you know, 5-inch swim baits. You know, now you got this new shad hatch, and you got everything from, you know, 1 inch long to 4 inches. You know, but you know, you can start with this is just a little crappie setup. This is that shooter we use for crappie. Got a little reel spooled up. Hang on just a second. Yep. Yep. Little Okuma reel, and it's spooled up with 6-pound test. So this is kind of a finesse swim bait. Little 3-inch Kitech on there. Little 1/8 head. That'll catch you. That will catch, you know, same deal. Everything in the lake you catch on this.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got 15-pound catfish on it, you know, bass, drum, crappie, you name it. They all eat that because everything eats the shad. You know, then you can go to a bigger bait. This is a little 4-inch Kitech. I got it rigged on a little 1/8 Crockett Gator swim bait jig head, open hook. Super easy to throw, super productive. If you're seeing a little bigger shad, start throwing that. You know, you want to throw these on lighter line, you know, nothing bigger than 12, 10-pound seems like about the perfect, you know, it's still strong. You're out in open water, you know, and you just rig it with that open hook, throw it where you're seeing fish bust, or where you know, these corners alongside any shade dock. You know, and the fish are going to be hanging out there. You know, that's really, really productive. If I'm fishing some of those, or if we're fishing like the cables that coming off these big docks, maybe around brush, you know, anywhere where these open hook baits get hung up, I like to rig this thing. It's kind of an old deal we've been doing for a long time. This is just a 1/4 ounce Crockett Gator Shaky Pro head. And I rig that, you know, especially with this spring coil on there. You can screw these on there. It'll help make that bait last a lot longer. But you can rig it like you rig Texas rig worm or something. You bring that little hook, you bring that hook out, and then you pinch it in there. And then you rig it straight, throw that out there, and work it just like you do any other swim bait. But now you can bump that brush. You can bump them cables. You know, and then these fish suspend on these cables. You'll see some cables go straight down, but a lot of them kind of start at the top and they drift and they go way out there. They might be 50, 70 foot out in front of these docks with that big weight out there, you know, just like an anchor to keep that dock stationary. But this is a really good way to rig a swim bait if you're swimming around them big cables. If you see brush, you want to run this thing up to that brush, hit that brush, you can do it if it's rigged like this. You know, that super sharp hook just pops right out of there when that fish grabs it, no problem. I started doing this down at Table Rock in all these trees, you know. You were getting hung up so much, now I throw it through them trees. You can just bring it right up over top of a tree. Truman has a lot of trees, you know, Ozarks has a lot of trees. They're just down really deep here, you know, but the brush pile. So that's another way we rigged that swim bait head. You know, that's as far as swim baits and topwater, that's probably what we've been doing a lot here, catching numbers and keepers. You know, the bigger fish, you know, we're throwing a big 10-inch worm, kind of, you know, just like this, kind of one of my favorites. It's just a Berkeley. This is a motor oil red flake. Got a 1/4 ounce tungsten weight with a 5/0 wide gap hook. And all we're doing there is we're either fishing ledges. When I say ledges, you know, shelf ledges, pulling it off each shelf. Rocks, but more brush too. Brush in from 5 to 15 foot of water. We really haven't been catching deep fish, really. I mean, I know some guys probably are. That deep bite just hasn't developed. A lot of fish are still fairly shallow. And I say shallow for summertime, 15 foot, that's still, you know, fairly shallow. You know, your shaky pro head on a little 1/4 ounce, or a little 1/4 ounce shaky pro head with a little mag finesse worm, still producing. Easy bait to throw on both the mag finesse or just the finesse. What are you doing there?
Right.
Throwing it.
Yeah, same thing. You're basically just changing the size of your bait.
Yeah.
But the 1/4 ounce, and this is just a great size to throw. Just it does kind of it helps you slow down.
Right.
I think, in a sense that, you know, the fish are pretty active right now. You don't necessarily have to slow it down too much, but if you slow it down, if you're not feeling the bottom, make sure you slow it down and really work it really slow.
Right.
And
The 1/4 ounce will do that. Now, if you're, you know, they're really wanting a big bait, like a brush hog, you know, a 10-inch worm, something like that, you know, just put you a 3/8 ounce, 1/2 ounce weight on there. Throw that thing out, let it get right down to the bottom and crash it through the brush, drag it through these rock piles. You know, a lot of times that's just what you have to do to get them bite. You still catching them on the Wacky rig?
yes, and you know, we're talking about the shad. The interesting thing is that a lot of the fish that we're catching right now are spitting up shad.
Yeah, you
And
catch
that
them and
is-
they're spitting up
yes.
shad
Yeah.
all the way back to the boat. So that tells you
Yeah.
that's what they're feeding on.
I'm still throwing my Wacky rig setup. I do have it on this 1/8 ounce head, and just take the worm through there, kind of balance it out, and this on a spinning rod, so I can really you know, flip it underneath the cables when I'm fishing those docks in the backs, looking for the shade, looking for shad, and just getting my bait around those shad and the docks when I need to. So this is just a really nice way to finesse.
And it's another extremely easy technique on a spinning rod and reel, braid, you know, 12-pound fluorocarbon leader. And like she said, you can skip that thing under these catwalks, under these cables. I mean, back up alongside these docks where these bigger fish are going to get when it gets bright, sunny, a lot of activity on the lake. They get up underneath there and hide. They still want to eat, and they still will eat. But if you get a bait back in there to them, you know, you can catch them. And that's a lot what that Wacky rig Cinco is super far. And, you know, anybody can throw a spin rod and reel. Right hand, left hand, you can switch the reels on them. You know, that's great. As far as that, getting towards the backs, if you're done fishing main lake, you're not having good luck out there, it gets real rough. You know, obviously you get into the back, they're feeding on shad too, so we're just throwing a different variety of baits. Well, little square bills, yeah, little square bills that go, you know, 1 foot to 3 foot back on these flats. On these docks that are way back in the flats where the shad are, when they get way back in there, then fish get back in there, and them big ones will get back in there with them. That's probably where we've caught the most big fish lately, probably, is in the backs. Obviously, that takes a lot of work, a lot of time. You know, you got to idle all the way back. You know, you throw your square bill around these flats, anywhere you're seeing shad. You know, this one here is kind of a bluegill chartreuse, kind of a bluegill color. You know, like they feed on a lot. We're going to have a bluegill spawn here coming up, so that's great bait to throw. Also a little bigger one, real bright one if you're up the river, or even, you know, down lake. Just a brighter color some days. You know, cloudy day. Some days they just want stuff that's bright. You know, so a little bigger square bill that might go down 5 foot. You know, but this is all for in the backs. You know, to say you couldn't throw a square bill alongside big docks, you can. You can throw stick baits, you know, little jerk baits alongside some of these docks, and you can really work it aggressively. If they come out and hit it, you're going to catch them on a stick bait. That's a real good way to catch a lot of fish that are feeding on shad. Other baits, as far as in the backs, obviously a go-to. You know, the Crack Getter 1/2 ounce zapper jig. You're not going to beat that jig. as far as an all-around jig. It swims real good. It's got a good medium fiber weed guard. It's got a great 5/0 Mustad Ultra Point hook. It hooks them up real good. This is brown purple scale, probably my favorite. This and Ozark crawl. In the summer, when the water gets a little clear and they're feeding on bluegill, I want a little more, and shad, I want something with a little more purple tint to it. And this one does it perfect. Something with a lot of movement on the trailer. This is that's a Strike King Menace, ain't it?
Yeah.
Yep. I always get these mixed up. Yeah, Rage Menace. Menace. This is that Strike King. That's a really good one. It's got I like it. It's got a good long body, so them double tail, double kicker, double legs stick out past that skirt. I got that skirt trimmed off, so you're flipping in around these docks, and when that thing turns, it's kicking, and it'll get a lot of good aggressive fish that come out from under these docks. That's probably pretty much my go-to setup if I'm on flip docks. 15-pound test normally on a 7-foot. This is a Falcon medium heavy with a Bass Pro qualifier reel. These reels for flipping, I've used them for 20 years, and they're probably the best reel for flipping. For me, they're very forgiving. Okay, they don't want to override. You can skip, you can flip in there really good. They're smooth for shorter flipping, shorter cast. They're not much, real good for casting, long casting. They just ain't got the quality, I guess, or the bearings or whatever it is. But they're super good for flipping. So that's go-to bait for that. Other stuff, other baits that we like for the back. Like I said, this is that Strike King Menace. The net bait Pekka Chunk is really good. It's super good. Got real good kicking. I like these baits. It doesn't require a lot of movement to get them kicking. That one's really good, but it's real similar to like the Yamamoto's. You'll get one fish out of it, and they usually throw the pincers. This is that Bojangles. They're a little twin tail, a little bulkier bait, but it moves a lot of water and it kicks real good. It's a good one for swimming if you're going to swim alongside some of them docks. Bait Cave makes a really good twin tail. I don't have that one up here. That one works really good too. Similar. They're all kind of similar, and they're all going to do the job, get the job done. You just want something that's moving a lot of water, kicking, kind of like these shad darting around. That's kind of what our main thing right now is going to. Choppos, full-size Chopo, full-size buzzbait, full-size spook. In the very backs early in the morning when they got these shad corralled to the backs of these flats, them big fish are back in there, and they're back in there feeding on them, and you can catch them on topwaters early. I mean, in 3 foot of water back there, and just working the big flats. Main lake points still, are going to produce for spooks, Chopos, buzzbaits. Early morning while that water's still fairly slick and ain't got a lot of activity, a lot of big wave movement up there. So, it's always easier to kind of hit main lake points right away and see if the bite's there. If it's there, stick with it, run it. You can run the main lake points with topwater. You can back off, drag a worm out there. If nothing, go halfway back, do the same thing, little pockets. If not, go all the way to the back. Sooner or later, you're going to find them. Fishing's good. It's summertime. These fish feed a lot in the summertime. They're eating a lot. So you got to get out there, but you got to be willing and ready to mix it up and switch it up. Because if they're not biting something, you cannot make them bite. You can see them. Live scope showed us that. The fish are there. You can see them. Some days they'll foul the bait. Some days they'll shoot up. Today we were watching them on topwater. They were working chug bugs, and I was looking at them with live scope, and I could see them fish down there 8 foot, and I'd say, get ready, because you'd see that fish turn and start moving, and they pop, and they'll shoot up to that top surface like that. When they're ready to feed, they feed. Yeah. But when they're not, they're not. So, that's about all I can tell you. You know, if you got family coming in, kids, whatever, any family, people from out of state, and you just want to show them a good time, have fun, experience Lake of the Ozarks, all the sights, all the houses, and get some fishing in and catch some fish, just give either Denise or I a call. You know, 573-204-9005 for me. Call me, text me, 314-226-3099 for Denise. Call, text hers. Get on our James Dill Guide Service website. We're redoing it, so there's going to be a lot of pictures up, a lot of small videos, how-to videos, rigging videos, a lot of different things we're going to put up that will just isolate it and make it, to our website.
Yeah.
I don't know what the word.
Dill.
I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Anyway, it will be exclusive. That's it. Exclusive to James Dill Guide Service, James and Denise Dill Guide Service website. There'll be all kinds of stuff on there. So look for that coming soon. But until then, that's about all we got for you for this week. Lake's in great shape. The fish are extremely healthy. A lot of big fish. A lot of 6 and 7 pounders being caught right now. A lot of them in the nighttime. There was a 6. When is 6?
Yeah.
A little over 6 pounder caught today in the guide trip. Super. So in the middle of the day, guide trip, and I think he said he caught it on a little swim bait. So super productive. On them swim baits, like we were telling you, there's no telling what you're going to catch. You'll catch 12-inch Kentuckys. You'll catch 6-pound largemouth. So swim bait's a great bait just to throw around everywhere. So that's about all I got for you. So until the next one, appreciate you tuning in. Please leave us a comment. Let us know what else we can do for you, show you whatever it is. If it's mapping, rods, reels, tackle, boats, motors, you name it.